Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Above the Rim Rundown, where we run down all things NBA. I am one of your hosts, Memo, and right beside me, I've got Hoops. How you doing?
What's going on, man? Overall, I've still been doing good. Overall, the week has went by for the most part pretty normal as usual. And then, aside from that, obviously, we are we not only had the ending of the NBA Cup, but we're also about to approach the holiday season, and so that means Christmas Day basketball, which
Christmas.
is pretty much NBA's unofficial holiday signature day. Um, yeah. Overall, I've been doing good though. How have you been?
Alright. Since the holidays are coming up, I'm gonna be, uh, having a break from work, which is gonna be very, very nice. A well needed break. And yeah, I'm excited for the holidays. I guess heads up for everybody. We will take I believe just a 1 week break, just so we could, enjoy our holiday, is spend time with family, friends, and all that. I know you have uh, some cool plans for Christmas and all that, so we're gonna take a break next week. But we do have a stacked episode for today, because we're gonna cover a lot. We're gonna cover the results of the NBA Cup, a little bit of the WNL list. What else? Some interesting news, and we'll end things off talking about what we want for Christmas this year, related to basketball, of course. But yeah, speaking of Christmas, like today we were out. I was trying to get my Christmas shopping done, and I'm still not done. So that's been on my mind lately. I'm tired. I'm stressed out trying to get these last minute presents, but we're gonna try to pull through today and just enjoy this episode right before our short break. So
Definitely. Yeah.
So let's jump into it, and as always, we'll go over the NBA standings. And I believe, did I do the West Coast last week?
I think so.
I always forget.
So
So
I believe, yeah. So I can take the charge on the Western Conference this week.
cool.
So starting at the very bottom, we have the Pelicans at 5-23. At number 14, we got the Jazz at 6-20. At number 13, we got the Trailblazers at 9-18. At number 12, we got the Kings at 13-15. At number 11, we got the Spurs at 14-13. At number 10, we got the Warriors at 14-12. At number 9, we got the Suns at 14-12. At number 8, we got the Timberwolves at 14-12. At number 7, we got the Lakers at 15-12. At number 6, we got the Nuggets at 14-11. At number 5, we got the Clippers at 16-12. At number 4, we got the Mavs at 17-10. At number 3, we got the Rockets at 18-9. At number 2, we got the Grizzlies at 19-9. And sitting at the top of the Western Conference, we got the Oklahoma City Thunder at 22-5. So those are the current Western Conference standings.
Now let's move on to the East Coast, the least coast. Starting at 15, we got the Wizards with a 4-21 record. Wow, that's disgusting. Raptors at number 14 with a 7-21 record. Hornets at number 13 with a 7-21 record. Sixers with a 9-16 record. They're at number 2. Pistons at number 11 with an 11-17 record. 10 are the Nets with an 11-16 record. Bulls are number 9 with a 13-15 record. Pacers are number 8 with a 13-15 record. The Hawks at number 7, continuing to be mid with a 14-14 record. The Heat number 6 with a 13-12 record. The Bucks number 5 with a 14-12 record. Magic number 4 with a 17-12 record. Knicks at number 3 with a 17-10 record. Celtics at number 2 with a 21-6 record. And at the very top, it's the Cavs with a 24-4 record. So those are our standings. Now let's jump into some NBA Cup talk. This little NBA Cup rundown. We covered the first round of the knockout stage last week and made our predictions for the following games, and we did a pretty good job for the most part with our predictions. We had a feeling that the Thunder and Bucks were gonna be there, but the final result was definitely surprising for the both of us, I guess. But before we get there, let's talk about the semis. Let's talk about the Thunder versus Rockets, a matchup that we were definitely looking forward to. These two teams are very defense heavy. They rely on the defense a lot. So what are some of your takeaways from this game?
Yeah, so my main takeaway of this game was it was pretty much the way I expected, to be frank. Game was pretty close and competitive for a good amount of the game until the fourth quarter, which was when OKC was able to pull away late. And as I mentioned in my predictions in the last video, I pretty much predicted that this game would go like that. Close for a good amount, but ultimately OKC pulled away late. So nailed that part. But anyhow, getting more specific on the game trend, Rockets led for the majority of the game, leading to the halfway mark of the third, and they even led by as much as 7. But from there, OKC just took control, showing that they were clearly the better team. The game remained close until the fourth. OKC was then in the fourth quarter able to go up by as much as 16, which ultimately helped them pull off the commanding 111-96 victory, heading to the NBA Cup championship game. So, key contributors to both teams, starting with the Rockets, Amen Thompson had 19 points, Dylan Brooks and Jamari Smith Jr. had 14 points each, Alperen Sengun had 13 points, Jalen Green and Tari Eason had 12 points each. And then for OKC, SGA had 32 points, Isaiah Hartenstein had 21 points, J-Dub had 20 points, and Lu Dort had 19 points, including 5 for 9 from 3. So a lot of key contributors that helped them get to victory for OKC. So I would say that game was not shocking who won, and the way it went, I would say not too shocking either. Close for a good amount before the better team clearly pulled away. But yeah, that was pretty much my main takeaway of the semis game between the Thunder and Rockets. Anything you would like to add on to what I mentioned, Memo, or?
I've got a few things I want to mention, but basically just piggybacking off of you, that this is what we kind of expected to happen. I mentioned in our prediction video that a lot had to go right for the Rockets in order for them to win, and the things that I was hoping for did not happen. I said that Alperen Sengun was gonna need a basically breakout performance, and that didn't really happen. He only had 13 points. Jalen Green only had 12 points, and I said he couldn't afford another bad game. And the defense is always amazing from the Rockets, but so is the defense for OKC. The big difference is the offense. OKC, I believe, is a top 10 offense, while we can't say the same for the Rockets. And it really shows. They don't really have a number one scorer to help out in the fourth quarter. And we even saw that against the Warriors, how Sengun was really struggling to score because of Draymond. And they had like a period of time where like 3 minutes for the Rockets with no bucket. So something that they need to consider moving forward is trying to get that number one scorer for clutch situations for the fourth quarter. Ideally, it would be Jalen Green, but he's been so streaky throughout his entire career that you can't really rely on him when it's needed. Well, they kind of did with the Warriors with those 2 free throws, but still, he had a bad game against the Warriors. He had another bad game against the Thunder, and you could definitely contribute that to the OKC defense, but still, they needed his scoring, and that was not provided. And yeah, this was exactly what I predicted. I guess the one thing I was definitely wrong about is underestimating Isaiah Hartenstein's defense. I said he was most likely the weaker defender out of the whole starting 5, but he held his own against Sengun. Sengun only had 13 points, and knowing that the Thunder are light on that position, on the center position, it's impressive that they were able to handle Sengun as well as they did. So shout out to Hartenstein, who had a great game, as you mentioned, had 21 points. This was to be expected. So I guess it's safe to say that we can move on now to Bucks versus Hawks, which, also started as a close game. But yeah, as we predicted, the Bucks were able to win this one. So what are your takeaways on this?
So this was a pretty close and competitive game throughout, as we probably figured it would be. Hawks had their biggest lead in the first quarter, which was only 6, and the Bucks' biggest lead was 10. The Bucks led for most of the second to the fourth quarter, with a few small Hawks leads here and there, but ultimately, the Bucks were just able to pull away late and get the 110-102 victory, which set them up to playing OKC in the NBA Cup championship game. So stats for both teams. For the Hawks, Trae Young put up 35 points. Jalen Johnson and DeAndre Hunter put up 15 points each. Dyson Daniels put up 11 points. Bogey put up 10 points. And then for the Bucks, the Giannis showed up big with 32 points. Dame also showed up big with 26 points. Brook Lopez put up 16 points, and Bobby Portis put up 10 points. So good contributed scoring from the key guys needed for the two teams. Ultimately, the Bucks proved that they were the superior team. And yeah, I would say that for the most part, this was also pretty predictable as far as the game being close, but ultimately one team, being the Bucks, was clearly the better team. But those are pretty much my takeaways from this game. Anything you would like to add on to what I said, Memo?
Yeah, just agreeing with you once again. This was definitely something we predicted. I had a hard time predicting whether it was going to be the Bucks or the Hawks. I ended up leaning with the Bucks, and that was mostly because of Giannis. Giannis was clearly going to be the best player on the floor, and he proved it once again with his 32 points, playing great defense. He had that nasty block, I believe, on Capella that was very cool, and it drove some controversy on why we shouldn't have the games at Vegas, because the Vegas crowd didn't even react to that crazy block. We might talk about that later, but still, that Giannis is incredible. Like the way that not only is he an talented offensive force who just drives into the lane, still is able to make plays for his teammates, and still give it his all on the defensive end is unlike no other. So he really came through. Obviously, Dame came through as well. These two have been rolling lately, and I'm happy to see it. Sucks for Trae Young, who ended up losing this after beating the Knicks. It would have kind of been cool seeing him move forward, but that was not the case. Um, I had a feeling that DeAndre Hunter and Jalen Johnson were able to play as well as they did against the Knicks, and that kind of happened with them scoring 15 each, a lot less than the 21 and the 24, I believe, from the last game. So they needed more contribution from the offensive side, not just Trae Young. But yeah, this one we predicted this would happen, and it did. The superstars just came through for the Bucks, and that's essentially it. So, those are my thoughts on that.
Yeah, pretty well said. I think that for the most part, it was a pretty good game, and both teams made it entertaining. But at the end of the day, clearly the top team won, and yeah, we will definitely talk about the controversies of whether or not these all of the final three, or I guess you could call it final four because the last four teams standing. But I guess, yeah, we will definitely talk about whether they should move some of these games to being home court for teams as opposed to Vegas later. But yeah, for the most part, I think this game was pretty reasonable what happened. And so that set up the championship game between OKC and Milwaukee.
Yeah, a game that we assumed was gonna happen. We thought this was gonna happen. I guess last week, or originally, I did not have the Bucks going to the finals, but you did. You called this. You called this from basically the beginning. Uh, but we did think OKC was gonna win, and that was not the case. So, what happened? What do you think went wrong for OKC? What are some of your takeaways?
Yeah, so early on in the game, OKC kind of showed like they probably would take the game at the end. I mean, they led by as much as 7 early in the first quarter, and then the Bucks and the Thunder traded leads a few times in the second, but from there, everything just went downhill for OKC. They never led in the second half, and the Bucks pulled away and had total control. As a matter of fact, the Bucks ended up going by as much as 20 at one point, and ultimately they were able to lead to a shockingly demanding 97 to 81 victory. And so this was a really bad shooting night for OKC. Obviously, only putting up 81 points in 2024 is not a good sign. And you would have thought if it was going to be a blowout, that if anything, it would be in OKC's favor. But it was somehow the opposite. Now, as mentioned, neither team hit 100. Again, a little bit of a shock there. Um, I can't really even say defensive battle because a lot of it came down to poor shooting, especially on OKC's end. But yeah, it bring back some old school vibes. Was like that lower scoring scoreboard. Um, so for OKC, SGA put up 21 points, J-Dub putting up 18 points, Isaiah Hartenstein putting up 16 points, and then for the Bucks, per usual, as of late, Giannis and Dame did their job. Giannis put up 26 points. Dame put up 23 points on 5 for 10 shooting from 3, 6 for 12 overall, so 50%, pretty efficient. Brook Lopez put up 13 points, including 3 of 6 from 3 and 5 for 12 overall. Gary Trent Jr. contributed as well. He put up 13 points and he was 3 for 6 from 3, 5 of 9 overall. And so very key contributors there for the Bucks, leading them to victory. And so I would say, looking back in hindsight, the NBA Cup is off to a pretty hot first 2 years of its project, with Braun and Giannis winning the NBA Cup respectively. And this is giving me a lot of 2020 to 2021 vibes again, reminiscent of how Lakers won championship in 2020, Bucks won championship in 2021. Now it's Lakers win NBA Cup in 2023, Bucks win NBA Cup in 2024. So kind of cool there, honestly. But yeah, hopefully both of these teams can build off their strong NBA Cup runs and finish the rest of the season strong. And who knows? Maybe, just maybe, NBA Finals preview. I mean, probably not super likely, but you never know. We've seen crazy things happen, including the Dallas Mavericks last year, which I don't think anyone predicted would make the finals, and they somehow did. So, yeah, never say never is all I gotta say. But yeah, Memo, would you like to add on for what I mentioned for the championship game between the Thunder and the Bucks?
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, this was a little bit of a snoozer. Mostly because, like, the offense wasn't really going in the first half, especially for OKC. OKC struggled a lot from three. They were 1 for 17 in the first half. They really struggled from there. And they only had 5 3-pointers made throughout the entire game. That was the same amount Damian Lillard had by himself. So this is a very rare instance for the Thunder where they really struggled shooting the three, and a very rare performance by SGA as well. Like, he had his 21 points, which is cool, but he didn't get to the line as much, and his shooting percentage this game was not the best. 8 for 24, 2 for 9 from the three. Really struggled there. And if he's struggling and nobody else was going to step up, then there's basically no offense. This is kind of like a reminder of the series against the Mavs last year, where Shai was the only one who was producing offensively, and J-Dub couldn't really make any waves, or Chet as well. They couldn't really score as much. But this time, SGA is actually struggling as well, scoring the ball. So that's actually very surprising. He is usually a very consistent 30-point per game guy, very efficient, always on the line. But that was not the case in this game. So, yeah, that's why eventually, even though it was a close game by the end of the half, eventually the Bucks just took control. They made sure that OKC only scored, I believe, 14 points in the third quarter, which is a very low. And basically ran away with it, becoming the NBA Cup champs. And as you said, reminiscing of 2020, 2021 championships, when the Lakers won in 2020, the Bucks won in 2021. So that means you should put your money on the Warriors for next year's NBA Cup, because I'm seeing a pattern, especially, I can't believe you brought this up, especially if they hire Darvin Ham and Taurean Prince onto the roster, because they are still undefeated in NBA Cup play. They are what is it? 14-0 or something like that.
14-0, yeah.
They're the goats. Darvin Ham is the Phil Jackson of the NBA Cup. Torian Prince is the Michael Jordan of the NBA Cup. You can't tell me otherwise. Torian Prince has made $1 million off of this tournament. That's insane. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty funny. But good for them, honestly. Good for them.
Yeah, definitely. Speaking of which, how about Darvin Ham updated resume for everyone real quick? Um, so he is a 2004 NBA champion with the Pistons, 1997 NBA slam dunk participant, 2021 NBA champion, 2023 NBA in-season tournament champion, 2023 Western Conference Finals appearance, and now 2024 Emirates NBA Cup champion. So, yeah. Darvin Ham, the GOAT, point blank. All jokes aside, though, congrats to the Bucks for winning this NBA Cup. Hopefully, this can um, keep them pushing forward for a strong finish to the season. Obviously, we all know they started the year really slow, and they have been getting it going recently. So keep trending upwards, and you don't know what can happen. Maybe they have one of the coolest storybook turnarounds in history of recent if they're able to post something special. Um, yeah, I mean, obviously this is not the real thing, but AIM now being able to hold some kind of not the NBA championship trophy, but like an NBA Cup trophy, maybe that gives him a little bit of the taste of, all right, I just need to do this much more to make the next step up.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe, just maybe. That'd be cool. But yeah, overall, I would say NBA Cup had its. Obviously, there were some parts that were not necessarily the highest of highs, but overall, I think it was a good year two project, and it would be cool if we did get these two teams in the finals. I mean, not sure how likely it is, but it would be a cool matchup. If that were the case, probably OKC will win in a 7-game series, but we'll see. Anyhow, I would say overall, it was a good year two of the NBA Cup.
Yeah, I, I'm a fan of the NBA Cup. It has provided some entertaining games, and it
I
seems like
agree.
the players do care about winning it, either for the money aspect or just the pride of winning the NBA Cup. Giannis was definitely ecstatic about it. So was Dame. Dame looked very happy winning as well. So that's cool to see. Honestly, it's cool to see that they do kind of care about this uh, December game. You know.
Definitely. And sometimes I honestly do believe that these NBA Cup games be more entertaining than NBA playoff games. And that's a sad reality. So hopefully NBA playoffs can get more entertaining again because last year was a lackluster playoff. Um, but yeah, NBA keep pushing, and we'll see how it evolves.
Yeah, we'll see. We're not completely done with NBA Cup talk because we're gonna talk about the NBA Cup MVP and the All Tournament team. Now the MVP was obviously Giannis. Uh, best player on the winning team, so it has to go to Giannis. We both thought it was gonna be Shai because we both thought OKC were gonna win the whole thing. That was not the case, but I'm happy to see Giannis lift up another trophy. He has a bunch of trophies when you think about it. I was watching the No Dunk podcast, and they were just naming off all the awards that he has won. He's won Most Improved Player, Defensive Player, MVP, Finals MVP, the Eastern Conference championship trophy, the finals trophy, now the NBA Cup MVP, the NBA Cup in general. I might be missing a few, but he's done a lot in his career. Did I even mention MVP? He was the MVP of the league as well. He has so many different trophies.
Yeah. This man has pretty much done it all if you think about it. Like at this point, anything else he adds is just adding to his resume and even further impressing. But like if this man retired today, his career was a massive success already.
Oh yeah, first ballot
So
Hall of Famer easily.
definitely. I think that he's definitely in the category of the nothing more to prove ship. Haters can say otherwise. Oh, he's running dunk man. This, yada that. But the reality is, um, he has done so many things already that he's already easily, as you said, first ballot Hall of Fame. And like, if you have the abilities to run and dunk, why wouldn't you do it? Yeah.
I wish I could run and
Um.
dunk.
James,
I'll say that.
yeah. James Harden being salty, of course, per usual. That's all we gotta say there.
Yeah. So Giannis deservedly earned the NBA Cup MVP, and he landed a spot in the All Tournament team. Uh, the rest of the players that are in the All Tournament team include Shai, Damian Lillard, Alperen Sengun, and Trey Young. And I feel like this makes a lot of sense after seeing it all pan out. Before the knockout stage started, my predictions failed me. I only predicted Shai and Giannis to be on this list. I thought the Knicks were going to go farther than they did, so I thought Brunson and Cat would be on the list. I thought the Warriors were going to beat the Rockets, so I had Steph on the list. But that was not the case, and I got 2 out of the 3 people correct on the team, which is no biggie because the list definitely makes sense with Trey Young's incredible performances and his showmanship against the Knicks. He deserves a spot. Um, Damian Lillard had some clutch moments as well, and some just great shooting, great performances in general. So he deserves a spot. Giannis, obviously the MVP, so he deserves a spot. Sengun had a pretty good game against the Warriors. Um, so even though he didn't have the best game uh, against the Thunder, you can't really name another center that was better than him throughout the knockout stage. So I think Sengun deserves a spot. And then Shai, obviously, making it to the NBA Cup Finals and being the best player, deserves a spot as well. So do you agree with this all tournament team?
Definitely. And it's hard not to, especially knowing how these guys had majority of them made it very far, at least to the so correction to clarify, all of these guys made it to Las Vegas. So it makes a lot of sense. And then 3 out of the 5 made it to the championship game. So yes, absolutely does make sense. Um, and yeah, as far as prediction goes, there were some flops in my prediction as well. Like for example, expected the Warriors to go further, so we all thought Steph was gonna make it, and then we also thought the Knicks were gonna make it further. So then I predicted Cat to be on the list. However, I did get Giannis correct, Shea correct, and I happened to get Trey correct. So went 3 out of 5 there. And I can't be mad at what actually happened because, as we both mentioned, the list that the NBA came up with was very logical and made a lot of sense. um, which has me kind of like thinking to my mind, if we were to compare this year's All NBA Cup team versus last year's All NBA Cup team, probably last year's was a little bit better because like LeBron, AD, KD, Giannis, and Tyrese was there too. So yeah, I would say last year's was better, but this year's was still quite good. So overall, not bad for the All NBA Cup team.
Not bad at all. So I believe we could end NBA Cup talk here. That was our NBA Cup rundown. Now we're gonna kind of move on and go over the WNL list. We don't have a lot to cover this time, so we'll go by short. Especially since the first one, obviously the first team to be on the W list is the Bucks for winning the NBA Cup. We don't really have to go into too much detail, but they deserve a spot in the W list, of course, right?
Yeah, of course. I mean, won the NBA Cup after a slow start. They are the fifth in the East and pretty much just continuing to move up the ladder. So definitely a W for the Bucks. I think that would be good enough for them. Pretty self-explanatory. And that brings us to the next team on our W list being the Knicks and Cat. And reason being is the Knicks are now the third seed in the Eastern Conference with a 17-10 record. And aside from the NBA Cup loss to the Hawks, the team has done pretty well lately. And that includes Cat with his revenge game in returning to Minnesota and the Knicks commanding 133 to 107 blowout win over the Timberwolves, where Cat put up a very efficient 32, 20, and 6 game, being 30 points, 20 rebounds, 6 assists. And yeah, pretty good return home there. Timberwolves gave Cat a pretty good tribute video in the beginning of the game. That was also cool. And so that once again brings another head scratcher to why the Timberwolves made this trade. Still don't know why to this day, but yeah, I'm sure they are regretting it a little bit at least. As for the Knicks, I'm sure they're happy they made that trade. I mean, they're slowly but surely continuing to get better each and every day. Also climbing up the Eastern Conference ladder, and that's good news because more competition to Boston equals good. But yeah, that's pretty much my takes on the Knicks. Anything you would like to add on to anything on the W list?
Not much, just that, yeah, it was pretty cool to see how Cat got his revenge on the Minnesota Timberwolves. It seems like he's still cool with everybody there. Like, there was a nice embrace with him and Anthony Edwards before the game started, which was really cool to see how they're still pretty close. But yeah, this just continues to boggle my mind why the Timberwolves will trade the player they drafted 10 years ago, who became a star for their franchise, who probably would have wanted to stay there throughout his entire career, who's done a lot. Like, he, as much as Cat has been like a flawed player for the Timberwolves, he did help revitalize that team a bit. They had like a super long streak of never making the playoffs, and he was part of the team that broke that streak. So, just seeing him being traded away and got even better, that he's definitely gonna be an all-star this year. The Minnesota Timberwolves should be very disappointed in themselves. Like, this was a horrible trade for them. And yeah, although it was confusing at first when we reacted, we weren't quite sure who truly won the trade. It is easy to say now that the Knicks won by a landslide. So shout out to the Knicks and shout out to Carl Anthony Towns.
Definitely, yeah. That trade was not at all close to equal value. And Timberwolves have no one to blame but themselves for that. Anyhow, now that we went over the W list, I think it is time to move over to the L list. And as a matter of fact, we only have one team on the L list. Who might that be, you guys may be wondering? The Golden State Warriors. So, after a hot start to the season, the Warriors are slipping pretty fast, to be honest. They are now on a 3-game losing streak, and their record is now 14 and 12, and they have slipped all the way down to the 10th seed in the Western Conference. And 3-game losing streak is never good, but the cherry on top to that 3-game losing streak that really put them on the L list is their very embarrassing 51-point blowout loss to the Memphis Grizzlies. Like, anytime really losing by 20 plus or even 15 plus is never good, but they lost by 51 points. That is very bad. Um, yeah, not much needed to say there. If you lose by that much, you kind of deserve to be on the L list regardless. Anyhow, yeah, the Warriors are dropping very fast, and I'm not shocked that they're dropping. Maybe not necessarily expecting them to drop as fast as they are, but yeah, they're proving all of us in the beginning of the season, they were proving us wrong. Now they're starting to prove us right for not having a lot of faith in them. And this is reminiscent to last season. Remember last season, the Warriors also started season good and they dropped like flies. Except last year, they dropped quicker. This year, I feel like the drop was a little bit slower. Now, they were able to somewhat turn their season around and have a strong run before ultimately barely missing the playoffs last year. I hope that they just continue to drop and they don't even come close to making the playoffs this year. But we will see. Yeah, Warriors are on the downfall right now, and clearly worthy of being on the L list.
Oh yeah, most definitely. Yeah. Uh, Talking about that downfall from last year, like that downfall was mostly because of Draymond Green getting suspended and his stupid actions. So at least they had an excuse for last year. What's their excuse for this year? Like, it's not necessarily the same team, but there's a lot of pieces there that makes it so that it's pretty similar or somewhat better than last year's team, and now they're dropping off again. That's kind of crazy. But speaking of Draymond Green, in this 51-point loss against the Memphis Grizzlies, he pulled a Tony Snell, only doing cardio out there. In like the 30 plus minutes he was playing, 0 points, 0 assists, 0 rebounds, 0 steals, 0 blocks. Absolute egg throughout the entire stat line, which is kind of crazy because Draymond's kind of like a, a stat stuffer. It's not like amazing stats, but he'll do a little bit of everything within each game. But in this one, all zeros. And what's probably even more surprising, Steph only had 2 points. Like, that's crazy. He ended up with a negative 41 plus or minus. That's how bad the Grizzlies destroyed this team. It's actually kind of crazy seeing him go out like this. I know it's just one game, but this is by far the worst game of his career, and it's crazy that it's real. Like, I can't believe it.
Yeah, that is a lot of crazy stuff to have in that game. Honestly, I think the Steph only putting up 2 points is even more shocking than Draymond's donut. But both of them are quite shocking and quite embarrassing. So yeah, Warriors, very worthy of being on the L list for that game alone. And Yeah, embarrassing.
Very embarrassing. But yeah, as Hoops mentioned, this is the only thing in our L list. So we're gonna cover some NBA news now, and we're gonna talk about the All Star Game, and how it's changing once again. I think we kind of talked about the rumors, like a month ago. Like you brought it up, it was very interesting. But now they're actually doing it. So would you like to go over what's the plan for this upcoming All Star game?
Yeah, so NBA announced a revamped All Star tournament for San Francisco 2025. And how it's going to work is it's going to be a mini tournament with four teams, rosters of six players each, and it's going to be 3 games. So, how the teams will be picked: TNT analysts Shaquille O'Neal, Charles Barkley, and Kenny Smith will draft teams from the 24-player All Star pool on February 6th, and the teams will bear their names: Team Shaq, Team Charles, and Team Kenny. The Rising Stars winners that'll go to the All Star Game tournament will be called Team, and then it'll be Team Candace for Candace Parker. So, yeah, point blank is NBA is trying to start new things because of how low the ratings have been the last few years due to players not necessarily trying to the best of their abilities. It's just a glorified street basketball game if you think about it. But at that point, it's like I probably would rather watch a street basketball game because at least I don't know what to expect from those guys. Maybe there will be hidden gems versus this is just like a bunch of grown men messing around on a court and not even trying. So, will this tournament help the NBA's sake for views? I really do not know, honestly. And clearly, it's a project, an experience, first time try. So no one knows how it's gonna go or what's gonna happen. So we shall see there. Um, how do I feel about it? I honestly don't know. I'd have to see first. Um, I think that effort in trying to come up with something to change is good, but like at a certain point, it also sounds like they're doing a little too much, and that might be it. And so obviously they did try to add in the cash incentive, and teams did try a little bit harder for like 1 year only, the year when they were playing for Kobe and Gianna in Chicago. So that was a really good one. Since then, All Star games have just gone downhill every year, worse and worse. So we'll see what happens. Hopefully, gains more entertainment, but until I see it, I'm not getting my expectations up too high.
Yeah, I've always talked about how I'm like in love with the All Star game. I love All Star game season. I love the conversations behind it. I love watching all the events during the weekend. But last year was the worst basketball game I've ever watched in my life. Um, Seeing how they scored, a team scored 200 plus because there was absolutely no defense played, was crazy. So it makes sense why they wanted to switch things up because the product last year was garbage. But I don't think this is gonna fix anything. I've got more questions than I do last year, and I as mentioned, I don't think this is gonna do anything because at the end of the day, this is just a effort thing. These players don't care. They really don't. They just want to break. They just want to be in Cancun or something. They don't want to play a game at where is it gonna be this time?
It's gonna be San Francisco,
San Francisco. Yeah. They don't want to be in San
Golden State.
Francisco. They don't want to get their car robbed into. No, like they want to have a break. They don't want to play a game and get injured. So I don't think this is gonna change anything. I got questions like, is 40 points enough? Like, how fast did they get 40 points last year? they're not gonna play defense, so it might go like in 10 minutes, like or less. Um, Also, what if Wemby's an All Star this year and he wins the Rising Stars tournament? Does that mean we get another All Star to add on to a roster? Is y'all two teams now? Like, what's going on here? Like, uh, I don't know. Like, I'm glad Adam Silver is trying to do something new. He always does. Says he loves to do something to try to help um, the product look better, and he's not afraid to take risks. So I commend him for that. I think that's cool. But at the end of the day, these players don't care. It's a culture thing, I believe. Ever since like players like Kobe stopped being in the All Star game, players like Russell Westbrook, who would try his hardest out there, stopped being in the All Star game. Um, it just went all downhill. Like there's no guy out there that wants to prove that he is the best on the court when he's playing in the All Star game. And there just needs to be better leadership, and we don't have that in the NBA. I guess like the best players in the world could care less about this game. With Jokic, with Luka, they're always just goofing around, playing around with each other, not taking it seriously. And it's funny. It's funny. Like they have their funny moments, but with the best players in the league not caring, the rest of the players on the rosters are not gonna care. So yeah, I'm not expecting much. Watching a little tournament, this is kind of a cool idea, but I still believe this is gonna be not so fun All Star game.
Yeah, unfortunately, sounds about right. Not getting my hopes up. I feel like All Star Weekend is just continually getting worse and worse, and that's sad. Until proven otherwise, I think we just gotta accept it. But anyhow, I think we are good to move on to our next topic, and that would be possible NBA Cup format changes. So, going off from so far, there have already been some changes that were enacted from year one to year two. In year one, the quarterfinals at home sites were on Monday and Tuesday, semifinals in Las Vegas were on Thursday, and championship game was in Las Vegas on Saturday. And so this year they changed it to where year two quarterfinals at home sites were on Tuesday and Wednesday, semifinals in Las Vegas were on Saturday, and championship game was in Las Vegas on Tuesday. Now, this definitely did make a lot of more sense in more ways than one. And I know one of the key things they mentioned was last year the Bucks when they were traveling to Las Vegas after their game against the Knicks before heading to the semifinal game. Apparently, they only had like a 30-hour um, turnaround or something like that, so that it wasn't really a lot of time for them to really prepare and practice. And they believed that it put them at a disadvantage. This year, that was not an issue whatsoever because of the scheduling shift. So that's good. Another thing is having the games on Monday and Thursday really conflicted with NFL because like Monday night football, Thursday night football. So smart move to move away from that this year for sure. So then that brings us the question, what changes could possibly be next? And so as we mentioned earlier, um, there have been talks about possibly maybe changing the semifinals to being played at the actual higher seeds home site as opposed to having those games and the championship game in Las Vegas. So in other words, the possibility is to change it from the final four teams in Las Vegas to only the two teams for the championship game. And so then that might be a good idea, possibly. I mean, as mentioned, sometimes the fans being so neutral, they don't get as engaged as if it's a home crowd, clearly. And then another possibility of change that has been mentioned is the possibility of doubling the length of group stages from 4 to 8 games. And the argument for that change would be to increase the chances of the best teams advancing. So, in other words, context, last year, no team in the West top five reached the knockout rounds. And then this year, the East top two seeds, being the Cleveland Cavaliers and Boston Celtics, both missed out. So, one anonymous Western Conference executive said if you play 8 group games, the Celtics wind up in the knockout stages, which I clearly could care less for because fuck Boston. But I could definitely see where that possibility could come from. I mean, like, it probably does give a better I guess a better showing of who really might be the best team if they have more teams advancing. At the same time, I think it makes things more interesting the way it is. Because, like, if you're gonna give all those teams so many chances, and yes, probably you're gonna have the best team come out on top. I feel like that kind of takes away some of the fun out of it. Versus this, because it is like a single game elimination and a lot of who peaks at the right time, you get a lot of unexpected underdog teams that you don't really think of being that good at advance. Like last year in the semifinals in Las Vegas, we were able to see the Pelicans and the Pacers advance to Las Vegas, which are teams that no one really thinks of as contenders or nothing, but they peaked at the right time, made things interesting. And then this year, not as shocking, but still somewhat shocking, being the Rockets and the Hawks, teams that are not really real championship contenders, yet they were also in the Final Four. So I would say, though interesting, I would probably prefer they keep it the way it is as opposed to trying to change from 4 to 8 games. Um, but yeah, those are pretty much the possibilities of changes that could be next for the NBA Cup, as well as my thoughts on the possible changes being talked about. Memo, is there anything you would like to add on to these topics?
I agree that we should change it to 8 games. It should still be 4 games. I feel like the general public will just care less if it's an even longer tournament than it is, because this thing kind of spanned definitely more than a month, right? So if it expanded even more, especially the group stage, which is the stage that like less people care about, then I don't think that's a good idea to extend that. What I think would work, because you know the changes are wanting to be made because of the ratings being low, the crowd being not so good. So I think the best way to do this is either like wait a week after the group stage, and then into the knockout stage, so that more people have time to set up travel, basically, because Milwaukee, Atlanta, that those are far away from Vegas, so it's hard for people to figure out how to get to Vegas in a short time span for a long time span, even though their team might not even make it to the finals. They still have to figure all these things out. So give them time to do that would be good. Or, as mentioned, maybe getting rid of the neutral site would be a good idea. But I feel like the final should be a neutral site like Vegas because that's the one game that doesn't matter in the regular season. So we should make that one the neutral site one because yeah, it's not gonna count for this um, you know, the regular season. Those are my thoughts though. I'm no expert, and I doubt any changes will be made, but I guess I wouldn't be surprised that there will be changes.
Yeah, I agree there. And I guess just a small thing in regards to how the championship game does not actually count. Um, I guess what do you really think about that? Because part of me thinks it's understandable because it's an extra game. Another part of me thinks like, damn, these players pretty much just played this game hard for not even counting. And like, I get it. These teams, Western Conference team, Eastern Conference team, they're supposed to play one game at this city and one game at that city. Low key, I almost wonder if maybe what they could do is whoever is the higher seed, just take away that game that's supposed to be played in that city and count this as that match. For example, OKC was a higher seed. So then when Bucks and the Thunder were supposed to play in OKC, maybe just take away that game from their actual schedule and count this game because both teams played their ass off. Um, I mean, could be an arguing point, but at the same time, I could understand maybe just keeping it the way it is where it doesn't count. Um, yeah, any thoughts on that? About the championship game not counting towards the record?
I mean, for me, I feel like the what did you say? The having the game in the future, like the home team instead of playing in the future during the NBA Cup Finals. Is that what you're saying?
So pretty much, yeah, pretty much what I was saying is replacing that game was the NBA Cup championship game. So that way these teams didn't necessarily play a game that doesn't actually count for the record because they both played really hard.
Okay. The issue with that though, what if they already played like their home game against that team already before the tournament? Because that happens sometimes where like all the
That,
matchups already
that
happened
does that
early.
does happen sometimes. Which I guess kind of brings a fair point. I guess another way they could make it maybe is like take away one of the two games, but maybe that would overcomplicate stuff. But I feel like honestly, the NBA Cup already kind of made a lot of inconsistencies in scheduling already. Like because of the NBA does two unscheduled games before the season due to seeing the consolation games for the teams that don't advance to the knockout stages. And so now we see Western Conference and Eastern Conference teams playing each other 3 times a year sometimes, as opposed to just 2 times a year. Like for example, the Grizzlies and Nets, they already played each other supposedly both two meetings way early in November. And then as virtue of NBA Cup, they ended up playing a third game. So yeah, definitely seeing already a lot of inconsistencies in scheduling. We'll see what happens, but yeah, I guess it makes sense they just keep it the way it is with the championship game not counting, even though it is a little bit disappointing for the team that won. Like last year, the Lakers championship game not counting towards the record.
And AD had like his best game on that day, which sucks
Yeah,
for
that's
him and his stat
that's
line.
also another conflicting thing, similar to how the in-season tournament games do not count as career stats. But I guess it makes sense because like then they're playing extra games that other players don't have a chance to record stats. It is what it is. But yeah, I think that would then include our NBA up talk officially now. Um, Talking about the possible changes that be coming.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see if any of that happens. But yeah, we would like to now go over our very last segment of the episode, and it is a special edition of both of our Christmas wish lists, as Memo mentioned in the beginning of the episode, all NBA related, of course. And this is similar to what we did for Thanksgiving with the three things we are thankful for. Now it is three things we would like to see for the rest of the season. Um, so I guess what we can do is similar to last time. We alternate 1-1, 2-2, 3-3, and I can start with mine. First thing on my Christmas wish list, honestly, I just say us being Lakers fans, I would like to see some trades at the deadline to increase chances of contention. Improve our wing depth. Maybe get like a better centerpiece. Really anything to just improve our chances of hopefully making a decent playoff run again. Um, yeah, I just say hope the Lakers get better is what it is in summary.
Hope that they win the finals. Even that'd be a great Christmas gift. Um,
That would be a very great one.
it,
And though it seems far fetched now, who knows? I mean, 2 years ago, the team did go from 2-10 to Western Conference Finals, so never know.
yeah. The first thing I want on my list, speaking of All Star games, I want a good All Star game this year. Although we're not having the traditional All Star game, hopefully this tournament thing is at least good. At least this first year. I'm sure it's gonna be a failure, whether it's this year, next year, or drop off eventually. We'll see, but I want a good competitive All Star game. I want the best players in the world acting like they are the best players in the world and play competitive against each other and try to prove to each other who is the best in the league. Because this is a great way to show it. Like being able to play with and against the best talent in the league, um, and being able to destroy them even would be awesome to do. I would like to do that. So yeah, as a all-star sicko like me, I want the all-star game to be good again. Make all-star game good again. Let's go. But yeah, that's my first thing. What's your second thing on the list?
Yeah, so second thing, kinda in a way, related to my first one, but more for the overall league. And that being, I would like to see an exciting trade deadline, aka a trade deadline frenzy. Um, More trades equals more excitement. Now, I do know that a lot of times there's gonna be more no trades than trades, and that's just the reality of the business. Both sides need to agree, or if there's more than just two teams, like 3-team, 4-team, 5-team trade, and all sides need to agree on something. So it's a lot of coordination between team front offices and team GMs. But that being said, there are a lot of players currently in trade talk rumors and wanting out, for example. I think it'd be cool to see some turnaround so that way teams get in better situations, whether it's unloading a player or to gain a player. Point blank, one man's trash is another man's treasure, or sometimes one man's trash is another man's trash. Or maybe one man's treasure becomes another man's trash. It's like a lot, very unpredictable, and that's what I think makes the league more fun when we get to see this turnaround. So yeah, I would say seeing some league turnaround would definitely be fun for sure.
Yeah, and it's kind of starting already. I guess we could talk about this earlier, but Dennis Schroeder is now at the Warriors, and it's looking like the uh, one man's treasure is another man's trash at the moment because his first two games with the Warriors are Not good. Obviously, he needs to get used to the new system and everything, but yeah, he's not looking as good as he was on the Nets. Which, like, to be fair,
Yeah, he was
he had to
doing
be.
great in the Nets.
Yeah, he was amazing, but that was mostly because who else was going to be amazing on the Nets? That roster is not the best. So hopefully Dennis Schroeder continues being good throughout the season. But yeah, kind of sucks he's with the Warriors now. But this was to be expected. The Nets were going to trade these guys eventually. So shout out to Schroeder though. Shout out to Schroeder. My next thing on the list, I do not want to see the Warriors, the Clippers, or the Celtics in the finals this year. Now, the Warriors and Clippers, I'm sure, won't make it to the finals. There's a possibility that they won't even make the playoffs. But the Celtics is the one I'm truly worried about. As a Lakers fan, I don't want to see the Celtics win another championship. They won one last year through a Mickey Mouse run with all these injuries. I would hate to see it happen again. So please, Santa Claus, let me have this gift. No Celtics in the finals. Please and thank you.
Definitely agree with you there. All of these teams we would not like to see win the championship or even make it. Preferably an early playoff outing would be very great. Which brings me to my last point. All of those teams you mentioned, and really don't want any of them to win anything ever again. Two of them, Warriors and Clippers, realistically speaking, are probably not going to be close. But really, I'm just going to go ahead and say anyone but the Celtics. That would be my third item on my wish list. And that being, obviously, the Celtics are the most realistic team with being so good on top to bottom on paper. And quite frank, this team is clearly not looking unbeatable. Um, they're a good team, but like they have had some questionable performances so far this season. And that includes on Thursday, they lost against the Bulls at home. And they got outscored by 13, I believe, in the fourth quarter. And it was honestly a pretty laughable incident at the end when Joe Mazzulla tried confronting the ref after the game ended. And that being because he was mad that the ref gave him and Jaylen Brown a tech in the fourth quarter with like 5 minutes remaining. And sure, maybe the ref did make a bad move there and maybe they should have let you guys play on. But the reality is you gotta know and learn to find a way to keep your cool. And it really matters like that. Don't put your team in risk to be in a bad situation. And that's what Joe Mazzulla ended up doing. Yeah. So point blank is this Boston Celtics team is clearly very beatable. I just hope that when it matters most, someone beats them and this team goes back to their old ways of choking in the playoffs. It is pretty much, I think there's no reason this team should win it again. Hopefully that is the case.
Yeah, I hope so too. Definitely. Okay. Last thing on my Christmas list: more accessible NBA games. What I mean by that is we gotta have these games be easier to find. Like, I don't know which streaming services I need anymore. What's the one place I could go to always watch the game? I feel like I need like 5 different streaming services in order to watch games. I've heard a lot of bad things about NBA League Pass and how it won't even let you watch the games from your local team, which, would suck because, like, my local team is the Lakers. So I would love to see my favorite team play a lot more than other teams. So I don't know why it's so difficult, and I know they're still like working on a bunch of like TV deals and stuff, and they're finalizing stuff, planning for next year or whatever. But it's so confusing. Like I don't have cable anymore. I don't know where to find some of these games legally. So if you care about the ratings so much, you should be able you should find a way to make it easy for the viewers to actually watch the game, because this is insane. There's so many different networks and subscriptions that we have to navigate through to figure out when the Lakers are playing. When's the next Warriors and Mavs game? How can I watch that? I like. Why should I be googling every time where I can watch a certain game? It shouldn't be this hard, and they're making it so much more difficult than it needs to be. So make the games more accessible to watch, please and thank you. But yeah, that's it for my list. Were you gonna say something?
Nothing really, honestly. More so just saying that I agree. NBA does need to do a better job with making games more accessible to fans. Um, and like the whole entire local blackout thing just doesn't make sense. Like, why the hell am I paying for NBA League Pass if I can't even watch my own team play? Like, NBA wonders why their ratings are dropping. That's the reason, honestly. And on top of that, like, if you're not gonna make the price accessible, not gonna make the price reasonable or make it accessible for me to watch, reality is people are just gonna use the illegal streaming services, and whether you like it or not, you gotta make a change, or else that's gonna keep on happening. So yeah, definitely agree on you on that. Hopefully they make games more accessible. Not betting on it, but we'll see.
Yeah, hopefully. But I guess that's it. We covered a lot in this episode. That was a good one. We went over a bunch of different topics. I feel like there was like something for everybody in this episode. So I hope you all enjoyed. If you did, like the video if you're on YouTube, subscribe if you're on YouTube, leave a comment. If you're on an audio platform like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, make sure you give us a 5-star rating and review. Check out our socials. That would be awesome. Anything you want to say before we head out?
Yeah, pretty much just mirroring what Memo said per usual. Thank you guys for the constant support to our channel. If you like our content, make sure to continue to like, comment, subscribe, share, and stay on the lookout for our content, because we always come up with a lot of interesting material on the go whenever there's big NBA news events, or there are any topics that are new to the league, we got you covered. So make sure to continue to follow us on all platforms: YouTube, Spotify, TikTok, you name it. And as mentioned earlier, we will be taking a 1 week break, but after that, its season will be continuing and smooth sailing. So yeah, hope you guys enjoy your Christmas, Happy New Year, and enjoy those Christmas Day basketball games as well.
Yeah, I hope you all have a happy holidays. Enjoy. And yeah, take care, everybody. We'll see you all in 2 weeks. Later. Goodbye.